what you think the dollar end game actually is, because I hear you talking all the time about the dollar's going to crash, it's going lower, the foreigners are going to, treat their dollars like a hot potato and all these things. And I totally understand that, but what is the detail of how it actually plays out? I mean, do you think that we'll get to a point where they'll back a digital dollar, let's say, with gold? And if so, how would they have to reprice gold? How would that actually work logistically? Have you given that any thought?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I do think that ultimately all roads lead back to gold. Gold is the anchor of the monetary system. We've kind of drifted because, we haven't had that anchor for a while. But we're going to go back to it. I mean, history, is replete with examples of nations that have tried a fiat system and it's never succeeded. I mean, the difference between the most recent experiment is that it's worldwide. It's not just one nation trying it, it's the whole world that tried it. Right. And it really was the US that got everybody to do it. And so it's kind of our fault. But I think we're going to have a currency crisis, and I don't know of any way to reinstill confidence other than with real money. So I think that's where we're headed. A lot of people, too, they'll criticize me because they'll say, hey, Peter thinks the dollar's so bad, but, what about the euro? What about the yen? I mean, everybody is printing too much money. I mean, we're the cleanest dirty shirt in the hamper. Why are you so negative on the dollar, yet, you're not worried about the euro or you're not worried about the yen? I mean, I'm not saying that, there's no problems in these other countries. There are a lot of problems. We're talking about relative problems. Not, yes, I mean, everybody is doing bad. I mean, so, if I wasn't grading on a curve, everybody would get an F, right? But if you're going to put a curve in there, the U.S. is in much worse shape. All you have to do is look at the trade picture. Right. Who is the big trade debtor, right? Who's running these massive trade deficits? Well, it's America, right? So if America is running these deficits, we don't run the deficits with ourselves. Somebody is generating the surpluses.
Yeah, Japan and Europe.
Yeah, somebody is producing all the stuff that we're consuming, right? Somebody is lending all the money that we're borrowing, right? And so those countries that have been producing and under-consuming, they're going to fare better than the United States. America generates the biggest windfall from the current monetary system, right? We are the issuer of the reserve currency. So we get that privilege. We get to consume without producing. And, consuming without producing is a lot easier than producing without consuming. We don't have to deal with factories. We don't have to deal with pollution. We just get all this stuff that just shows up. And I keep looking at the fact that America has been really a drag on the global economy because the world has been required to support America. That's the price it's paid for the dollar as the reserve currency. The rest of the world has to produce enough to sustain Americans who are not producing. So we're this giant burden that the world has to bear. They have to consume less so that we can consume more. They can't use all their savings for themselves. They've got to loan it to us, and we never pay it back. So the way I look at it, when this whole arrangement comes to an end, and the world is no longer burdened with the responsibility of carrying the U.S. on its back, then it's a boom. I mean, the only thing that you can maybe say that we've been providing to the world is defense, right? Because we don't bill everybody for their share of our defense budget. Yeah. But the question in my mind is America making the world safer with all this money, or is it making it less safe? The world is going to benefit, and America is going to suffer. And so on a relative basis, I do believe that every currency on the planet Earth is going to lose purchasing power in terms of gold, right? So I believe that gold will go up in terms of every currency. I just believe that it'll go up more in terms of dollars than it will in most other currencies.
So do you think we'll go back to a global gold standard?
Well, again, I think eventually we have to, because I think, let's say we have a real dollar crisis where the dollar just collapses, right? Maybe it doesn't go to zero, but the dollar index, which is right now, we talk about it's around 90.
Right.
What if it goes to 40 or 30 or lower, right?
Quickly. I think it's a matter of how fast it goes there too, as far as confidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to go there. I mean, I think the road down to 70 could be kind of orderly and slow and may take a year or two, but the move from 70 to 40 could happen in weeks, right? Yeah. I mean, just confidence goes. But if there's a big loss of confidence in the dollar, what does that say about the euro? What does that say about the yen or any of these other currencies? Because really, what's the difference? I mean, they're all paper. They're all based on confidence. Yes, I mean, you may have a better fiscal situation in those countries, but hey, once upon a time, America was the world's biggest exporter. We were the world's biggest creditor nation. And look what happened to the dollar. So if the dollar could crash, right, the almighty invincible dollar, if the risk-free asset, U.S. Treasuries, right, is like a junk bond and crashing, well, then what does that say about the sovereign debt of any nation? Right. So I think a dollar crisis ultimately could spark a worldwide currency crisis.
Systemic currency, right?
And so how do you reinstill confidence? How do you reassure your citizens that if they save your currency, it's not going to crash like the dollar did? You can't just, make promises, because what good are promises? What good are words? What you need to do is you need to say, hey, this currency is tied to gold, and this is the exchange rate. This is the rate. And so we guarantee that this paper is worth this much gold. And in fact, you go back to the original definition of a dollar, the dollar was a weight of gold. That's what it was. The dollar was defined by a particular number of grams of gold. So just like, what's a foot? Well, a foot is 12 inches. That's what makes a foot. If you have 12 inches, you got a foot. If you got 11 inches, you're not a foot, right? If I say, how tall are you? And you say 6 feet, you're only 6 feet if you're measuring with rulers that have 12 inches in each one to be 6 feet, right? If you have a 10-inch ruler, I mean, it's not going to work. So gold, the dollar was a certain weight of gold. If you didn't have enough gold, you didn't have a dollar. You had to have all the gold. That's why when they made the coins and they minted them and they put the mill marks around them, it was to prevent people from scraping off some of the gold. Because if you scraped off the gold, it would no longer be a dollar because it wouldn't have enough gold there.
Right.
And so that's what you have to do. You have to bring money back to a weight of something real. Right? Money has to be real. That's why cryptocurrencies will never be money, because they're not real. They don't have any actual value in the real world. You can't do anything with it. You don't use it for anything. But gold has real value. It has real use. And that value will be stored over time. So if I earn some gold today, I know that if I don't spend it today, I can spend it tomorrow, because that gold's not going anywhere. It's not going to lose any of its properties over time. It's going to stay exactly the way it is for eternity. And whatever I can do with gold today, somebody else can do with it in 100 years.